among others. Well, it includes enforcement as well. You can have a lot of policies introduced, and yet if you don't enforce it, people will keep on abusing the system. In 1992, a group of eminent scientists from around the world, or globe, including 102 Nobel laureates, drafted the World Scientist Warning to Humanity, that includes you and me, which read in parts, "We, the undersigned senior member of the world community, or scientific community, hereby warn all humanity of what lies ahead. A great change in our stewardship of the earth and the life on it, it is required. If vast human misery is to be avoided, and our global home on this planet is not to be irreversibly mutilated." This is already happening. There's a lot of misery already happening around the world because of human activity. As with national citizenship, proper education is the key of both sustainable development and the creation of positive global citizenship. Sustainable development aims at meeting the needs of today's generation while taking into consideration the rights and needs of future generations. Sustainable development should also include acknowledgement and respect for the positive heritage and legacy of past generations. In order to link the present with the past and future, we need education for sustainable development. In the present global era of interconnections and networks, education for global citizenship is a natural response to the increasing demand for global consciousness. Our earlier speaker this morning talking about consciousness and awareness of what's going on around you and doing something about it. It's no point in us agreeing but not doing something about it is also wrong. Intercultural understanding and cultural competence, those are things that are part of global citizenship. Designing and implementing present and future education program in the global context does give education a better meaning and concrete framework. We, as young people, students, need to understand the concept before we buy into what we need to do. First, education for life, sustainable development, and global citizenships are three independent contributors towards the creation of a true global community. Now let us examine the argument on several issues on sustainability as seen in various contexts. I've listed that out and we'll go through that one at a time as briefly as possible. The problem with the present globalization. In theory, there's general support for both education for sustainable development and global citizenship. This can be seen in various international declarations and documents of the United Nations. The same can also be said about globalization. As such, the problem is not about globalization, but what kind of globalization do we want for ourselves and for our future generation? For many people around the world, the present globalization is perceived as no more than the globalization of the interests of powerful countries and the companies. Therefore, it is easy to confuse the concept of sustainable development of people with sustaining welfare of big multinational companies. This makes the development and implementation of education for sustainable development and global citizenship a difficult task at all levels. The question is how to educate people on global citizenship and sustainable development in the context of the contemporary political, economic global system. Now, the paradox of the present global structure. While we talk about global village and the international community, the present global system does not represent or serve the interests of the majority of the people of the globe. The consequence of this system can be seen in the fact that less than 20% of the world population, mostly in the West, control over 80% of the world's resources, while the same minority contributes over 80% of global pollution. Well, when I say the West, it could include the Middle East, where the old wealth is, and maybe Brunei is a small part of that 80%. Now, the elite of the 20% control the three most powerful global institutions: the World Trade Organization, WTO, and IMF. That sets the agenda for global trade, development, and finance, respectively. While some 800 to 1,000 million people or a billion people suffer from acute lack of food, sanitation, and access to basic health care, energy, and clean water, people in the West, such as the United States alone, spend about 75 to 100 billion dollars per year to deal with affluence and affluent problems. The amount is about double the amount needed to meet the Millennium Goals set by the United Nations to halve the number of starving people, provide access to clean water, health care, and energy by 2015. As educators, it is important to provide the necessary space and opportunities for students to be made aware of this dimension of globalization and development. This can be done by presenting and analyzing the existing global socio-economic structure and how it affects different communities in different countries. What are the links between acute poverty in some part of the world and too much riches in the other parts? When someone talk about growth, I wonder what growth means to different people. More consumption. I remember the word said by a famous Chinese philosopher with food. Do we live to eat, or we eat to live? There are two different meanings. If we eat to live, that's a philosophy of healthy living. But if we live just to eat, then it's overeating. There's a tendency. So these are some of the sayings, which I think does make much meaning to what we're doing around the world. To do with fair trade. Are there truly fair trade or none? The architect of the present global system like to preach open market and free trade. However, the hard truth is that there is neither free nor fair trade. While the rich North has turned the world into an open market, it does not allow free or fair trade with the South. The North spends $356 billion annually in subsidies for its already rich farmers. On this, it is worth noting that the number of active farmers in the US and the EU are 2% and 4% respectively. The population respectively. In addition to the $1 billion per day subsidy, the North had erected a wall of trade barriers against agricultural products from the South. In order to make agricultural products cheaper, the North also gives export subsidies for shipping product to the South. Transport tax deduction is another way of making it possible for North farmers' farm products to be done in the South. So, where is fair trade here? In teaching about global citizenship and sustainable development, the unfair trade can be related to development aid and unfair practices as two important dimensions of globalization.